recording this event, and it will be made available later. Very happy to have you. With that, I'll give the floor to Federico Bonaglia and then Carolina Wennerholm for the opening.
Thank you very much, Jan, and a very warm welcome to everyone. And for once, I can really say it is a warm welcome because we are having some beginning of summer here in Paris. So it's a great pleasure to be with all of you and being able to introduce the discussion today. We have come a long way, and I would like to thank the team and our colleagues in Swedish Sida and all the participants from the region who have been so actively involved in the preparation of this recommendation of this diagnostic report and the identification of areas for next work. Let me very briefly give you an overview of what we're going to do today. A couple of quick messages, and then I will hand over to our sister in crime or partner in crime, Carolina from Stockholm. So my role here is quite simple. I just need to recall ourselves why we're here today, where are we coming from, and then I will share with you a couple of messages that come out from the report and highlight why here at the Development Center we think that it is so important to work on the region, on the Western Balkans, as part of our work as a policy dialogue that brings together countries that are interested in sharing experiences on their development trajectories. So the objective of today is quite simple. We are launching the first ever multidimensional regional review of the OECD Development Center. You will hear more from my colleague Jan about what the multidimensional reviews are and what are the results from this report. But let me just say that this type of reports is quite unique in its kind, and it was part of the reflection that the OECD made 10 years ago, actually, when we launched the first ever OECD strategy on development. And our member countries realized on one end that it was important to engage more with non-members of the OECD and to put at their disposal the different tools that the OECD had that is available to support policymakers. But on the other hand, there was also recognition that we had to take into account the multidimensionality of development, which is so clearly embedded in Agenda 2030 and in the Sustainable Development Goals. And so there was a need of developing a tool that could look at the different dimension of what we consider to be development or sustainable development better, and that could look also at the interactions and the constraints that may be hampering the full realization of the opportunities that each economy, country, region has at its disposal. So the first objective of today is really to launch and share with you the results of the report. The second objective of today is to provide an opportunity for us to walk the talk, because we don't only produce reports. Actually, reports are just an end and just a tool for having an exchange of policy experiences. And so we will have, in the second part of the meeting, a panel discussion with distinguished representatives from different parts of the Western Balkans. And we will also be very lucky because Susanna Gabel, the chief economist of Swedish Sida, will be with us. So having set the menu for the day, let me conclude with a couple of key messages from this process. First of all is to emphasize, as I was making the point just a couple of seconds ago, that this product, the multidimensional country review and the multidimensional regional reviews, are tools that we use here at the OECD to engage with emerging economies and to support them in the design of strategies for sustainable development. So the fact that the Western Balkans is the first region where we implement this tool on a regional base is, in our view, testimony of the very significant progress and dynamism that we can observe in this region, that we know is making important steps toward integrating into the global economy and more specifically into the European neighboring countries, and aligning also to the different rules, regulation, best practices of the European Union, what we used to call the acquis of the European Union. So on one hand, I think that having undertaken this exam shows the commitment of the region to pursue best practices and to share these practices. But on the other hand, having undertaken this report shows also the courage of looking into ourselves and identifying what are the constraints that are still preventing the full realization of prosperity, inclusive development, and a greener development model. So we will hear in the presentation of the report, the diagnostic, what are some of the issues that need to be still addressed in the region in order to advance towards a better future. And what I can already anticipate, without spoiling too much, I hope, my colleague's presentation, is that from the report, we identified 3 major strategic themes that will be the focus of the next phases of this adventure, of this journey. First, focusing on the green recovery, on the sustainable recovery, how to make the process of the recovery more energy efficient, less carbon intense, more respectful of the environment. This is what we mean by green. Second, education and skills, education and competencies. How can the different governments here empower their people with the necessary tool to be part of the process of economic development, taking into account issues such as digitalization, the development of new sectors, and of course, the mobility of labor. And third, not least, last but not least, is the issue of social cohesion. We know very well that the region has been undertaking a very remarkable process of economic transformation, privatization, a lot of reforms taking place in the, let's say, the more economic side. But this has not always generated the amount of jobs and the quality of jobs. And in some cases, has also contributed to, let's say, increase inequalities, or at least do not reduce inequalities at a fast pace enough. And so the third area that we will be looking at is social cohesion. Let me conclude by saying that, of course, this report is produced by the Development Center, but in the very spirit of every multidimensional effort, we are also multi-stakeholder, and it would have not been possible to produce it without the contribution from partners across the OECD. So we have been working with plenty of colleagues within the OECD, but also with partners outside the OECD, notably Swedish Sida, and of course, partners from the different administration from the region. So let me conclude here, thanking our focal points in the region. In Albania, Ms. Oriana Rapi; in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Amdo Tinjak, and I do apologize if I pronounce your names badly. I know what it means. Everyone calls me Federico here in France. My actual name is Federico, not Federico, so bear with me. In Kosovo, Mr. Vedat Sagonjeva; in North Macedonia, Ms. Elena Ivanovska and Ms. Ivana Adjevska; and of course, also in a previous capacity, Anna Jovanovska, head of the Sustainable Development Unit in the cabinet of the Deputy President; and in Serbia, Mr. Danilo Golubovic. So, big thank to all of you, and let me now give the floor to Carolina Wennerholm, who is the head of unit for the Western Balkans in SIDA, for her opening remarks. Thank you very much. Carolina.
Thank you so much, Federico, for these encouraging words and already giving us some head-ups of what's to come during this afternoon. So a warm welcome to all of you here. I count now 108 participants. That's fantastic. So I have the privilege to represent SIDA. I am head of the regional portfolio and work in Western Balkans and Turkey, where we have this very important collaboration with the OECD. But as you might know, we also have big programs and collaboration in all of the countries involved present here today. So I would really like to welcome you to the launch of this multidimensional review of the Western Balkans report. We are really so happy and proud that this has finally happened. It is hard work behind it. And I would like to stress what you said, Federico, that this is the result of a true partnership, because it involves so many people, so many stakeholders across the region, and also between the OECD and our teams within SIDA as well. And it has, if I might say so, even been interesting within Sida how this has generated interest across the institution. And you know, we do a lot, so that's quite tough to be on top of that list. And I would really like to thank specifically here today the representatives from the participating countries in the region. All the colleagues from Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo, North Macedonia, and Serbia, for your preparation, for your participation throughout this process. Without you, it would never have happened. I mean, you are the core of this work. Not the least the first visioning workshop, but then also the seminars now this spring, when we have sort of focused the work. I had the possibility to participate in some of them, and not all, also because of the pandemic, which strikes equally across the world. Anyway, I'm so happy to be part today, and I know I have many colleagues from us, ourselves and our embassies present today, eager to learn from the results of the report. And what the workshops have confirmed is that we will hear more about the details, but at the more general level, is that many of the challenges for the futures, when it comes to these three strategic areas selected by you, education and competencies, green recovery, and social cohesion, and I think the three areas have become even more important now during the pandemic, are shared among the countries in the region, and also that the solutions are to be found from a regional perspective and peers in the region. And therefore, I think also that this work in itself, which has meant a shared understanding, is a wonderful platform for the future work. So it has also enabled us to learn and see what the linkages are, and to ask advice from peers, because we are seldom alone, or we are never alone. We think that, oh, this problem never happened to anybody else, but generally it has happened many times before, and maybe at the same time. So it's always worth talking and sharing with peers, and when we learn. And this, we believe, will be even stronger after, when we now recover from COVID, when we start seeing some light in the tunnel. I would also like to thank and congratulate Jan Rielander for your leadership in this work. You have been there constantly, having the true leadership flag with you, which is always important and vital to lead a process to get to the goals that you want to achieve. You and your team have done impressive and important work. So thank you so much for that. It's interesting because this is the first regional multidimensional review that we see. You also show how the importance of bringing together various people, various actors is vital in terms of what you also mentioned, Federico. It's not about different perspectives, it's also about bringing different stakeholders at the same table so that we learn from each other. From a Swedish perspective, we are, as a Swedish authority institution, we are waiting eagerly, and we wait even for every month, we wait even more eagerly for our own government to decide upon a new 7-year-long strategy to work in the Western Balkans and Turkey. And that will involve working, as we do now, on a bilateral level in all the countries mentioned, but also at the regional level. So we see here how we can combine what's happening bilaterally, nationally, with regional interaction. And therefore we see this as an important platform. The results from this important analytical work is very, very important for us also to see how can we be partners in the future in this work. So what we do know is that we expect this new strategy decided by the government to continue focusing on ensuring democracy, human rights, gender equality, the environment and climate agenda, economic transition, and also peace and security as a continuous important work all over the world, but not the least in this region, and where we want to be partners. So the Swedish commitment remains strong with the region, and we really look forward to continued commitment and continued collaboration with you here present at the table in different ways. Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward now to learning from your results. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolina. Thank you, Federico. Thank you for your opening remarks and this very, very warm welcome. Thank you for all of your support. Also at this point, I would also like to give a special welcome to the many ambassadors that have joined us, both ambassadors to the OECD and ambassadors from the region. And we really very much appreciate also your presence and are very happy to have you with us. I will jump into the presentation without further ado. And then I'm looking forward to a very, very exciting discussion. Now comes the big technical moment that this all works. Goras, can you quick confirm that one sees the presentation? Okay, thank you, very good. So the launch of the report is a very big day. Just a little more than a year ago, this would have been on some stage and I would have been able to hold up this cover that you see here. Now we live in the digital age. And as of 3 p.m., this cover is available on the OECD website with the actual report behind it. And we're very excited about this moment. And this just to give you this very high level overview over the 9 strategic priorities that we identify, all in the context of EU integration as the one overarching process and priority. But let me take this time to go a bit more into the details. So where did we come from? To give you an idea of our process, we began in early 2020. We were lucky enough to begin before COVID really hit, and we were able to still go on mission and visit many of you in Albania, in Kosovo, North Macedonia and Serbia. Already Bosnia, unfortunately, we were too late in our planning. So we worked together in a different way through questionnaires and remote meetings, but we were able to really work with all of you through this process. Then we had a set of very nice meetings of our mutual learning group in September and October, where we had a lot of exchanges with the region and the member countries of the OECD Development Centre. And then in the meantime, have already started with the peer learning workshops for the next phase that Carolina just mentioned. And today I'm very happy to be here to launch this report, which really summarizes the assessment of opportunities and constraints and is the basis for this ongoing work that we're carrying out now and that we're hoping to be able to present at the end of this year. And then maybe already, let's say back in the old world, maybe in some way of meeting each other physically, but we will all experience the future together. Now, before I come to saying a few words about COVID, this was this very exciting stage of the project when we were still before COVID. And as the basis, and I think this is something I would really like to leave you with, the basis for a lot of the analysis that we did here was a set of very exciting visioning workshops where we applied aspirational foresight to really work with many of you to think about, well, if development succeeds, if we can dream of the ideal world by 2030, what would be the biggest elements of success? What would make 2030 a success? And it was very, very nice to be able to do this work with so many of you. And we were quite struck by the results. These are the results from those workshops. And you see there's many topics here. And of course, they have very much informed the priorities. Just one thing I want to highlight, and you will see that coming back, is that quality education came on top of this list in all the places where we did the workshop together. So this is really something that struck us, and that's driving why we also put this very much on top of the list. Now, these were the missions. These were the workshops. Then came COVID. So just to give you a quick overview over the situation, COVID, of course, has hit the region very hard. Here you see about the evolution of cases and infection that looks a bit similar to this in many countries in the world. GDP, the economy was hit hard in many places, but also governments really tried to respond and developed a number of programs. And some countries actually managed to weather this quite well. But overall, it was still a very heavy experience also, of course, in terms of the health toll, like it was for many of us. And it is something that will be quite defining for the region as for many of us. And the key, I think, to take away here is that because there's the need for a lot of government action, there's the need for recovery, there will be a lot of spending and a lot of money will be taken and will be used. And therefore, to be strategic in how this money is used is extremely important right now, because so many investments are at stake. And therefore, a strategic reflection about where should the priorities be, I think, is very important at this moment. Something very positive. This didn't make it into the report yet. It will be in our next volume. When we actually managed to get some data on what were some differences that we've seen between the time before COVID and after COVID, something that a very nice story that appeared from the Balkans is that actually in the Balkans, many more people said, yes, I've helped a stranger last year. So you can see that this crisis also really had an effect of mobilizing people to help each other. And you can see much more of an effect in the Balkans than in the European Union. So there's also some light and a very nice story about a region where people really help each other out. And then going forward, of course, the whole world, we're experiencing this together. The key really to overcoming this crisis are now going to be vaccinations. And you can see here that there's large disparity. Serbia is doing very well in terms of vaccinations. For some others, it's still more challenging. And this is something I think where the whole world community needs to work together to get everybody to support each other to overcome the COVID crisis. With that, let me put the COVID crisis on the side and give you the overview of what are the key things we found that have brought us to our priorities. What I'll present here is this bird's eye view of constraints and opportunities, our How is Life approach, our well-being framework that we use at the OECD and in all of our multidimensional reviews to really take a quick look. And this shows you the results for the region relative to where you would expect the region to be given its level of GDP per capita. And it's a lot to absorb. So take the time to look at the report. Just the things to point out here is that you see that employment is a big challenge, where unemployment and lack of employment opportunities really are remarkable and a big challenge for the region. And also in terms of empowerment, participation, and good governance, there is a significant gap. For many of the others, the region is where you would expect it to be, but and especially housing quality and safety are strong elements. But some of the challenges come out clearly here. We did that same analysis looking for how does this experience differently by men and by women. And you see what comes out clearly is that the employment situation is even though it is already quite challenging for everyone, it is even more so for women. So this is really a remarkable result. You also see health outcomes are different. I think the employment point here is really important. And also an interesting point is that life satisfaction is higher for women in the region than it is for men. But women also feel a much stronger distance to government and are more critical about the level of empowerment and participation. Now, let me come to the 9 priorities that we suggest for the region. And I apologize for going over this quite quickly. I see we're already running a little bit behind in time, but I'll try to give you really the overview. Before I jump into the 9 priorities, really as the background for all of this is that integration with the EU really is a key process, a very important process and a very important driver of democratization, institution building, development and regional cooperation. For one, of course, because it provides a perspective and a partnership, and 2, also because it comes with very significant amounts of investment and support from the European Union and its member countries that plays a very, very important role. So this is really the background against which I will present the priorities that we have identified. So the first one here, education and competencies, I already showed you. This is something that came out very clearly in the workshops as something that citizens really think of as this is very important for a successful future. And we've also found it through our analysis of the economy as key, because the region really needs to find new sources of productivity growth. It needs engines for future transformation. And of course, competencies, building competencies, especially in digitalization and other, let's say, modern competencies, is key to this. And it's key to do this now. What we see is, in a way, this task is the more urgent, the more unfavorable an economy's current wage to productivity ratio is. Many countries are challenged with this wage to productivity ratio, and education, and especially competencies for economic transformation, must be a key lever to pull to overcome this. When we looked at the education situation, we find that across the Western Balkans, the student-teacher ratio seems to be quite favorable. So there's many teachers, but overall, when we look at student outcomes through PISA tests, the outcomes are somewhat disappointing with respect to the resources invested. So there is an urgency here to think about better solutions. And this is what we've delved already deep in the peer learning, just to say that there's these two elements: strategies for competencies and future strength transformation, which is very much about combining education with practical training, and very much finding partnerships between firms, academia, and governments to really think about how to bring the latest competencies and skills to the whole economy. And then it's about the education systems at all levels, about curriculum reform, about early childhood education, which is something very important, and about a focus on equity and performance in the system, so that everybody can get a chance to participate really in the economy and very much in society. A second big topic that we've identified is social cohesion, which is very much an opportunity and a challenge at the same time. We find that in more cohesive societies, all citizens can benefit from and contribute to social progress, that social cohesion builds trust and foundations for better institutions and more effective collective action. At the same time, we see, and I've shown you that the labor markets in the region do not perform. Many people are unemployed. And this, of course, strains the ability of citizens to step up for each other. And it's a big strain on social cohesion. And at the same time, we find that this lack of formal labor market participation is a big challenge for the social protection and social support system as it exists, because this is mainly contribution-based, meaning you hold a formal job, you pay a contribution into the system, but when very few people have formal jobs to pay into the system, then the whole financial sustainability becomes challenging. So this is an area where we really need to look deeper to find some innovation, and this is what we're doing in this current second phase and the peer learning workshops. And then, of course, lastly, COVID has very much underlined the importance of effective social protection systems in the Balkans as everywhere in the world. And it's really about having the effective automatic stabilizers in times of crisis. This just some more information here to show you in terms of expenditures on social protection benefits, where the region is, of course, not quite at the level of the EU, but also very much what is quite interesting, if you look at means tested benefits, that means a lot of the protection or the support systems that exist, they don't necessarily target the people that need the most. And so there is a big challenge of spending happens, but it doesn't reach the people that need it the most. And a lot of innovation is necessary here. Then, of course, the green recovery. The Western Balkans is quite challenged by air pollution. This shows you the level of seriousness of how citizens perceive air pollution. The health costs of air pollution in the region are high. So this has been a main driver, and this has come up a lot in the workshops, that people really see future as one of a good environment, of making the most of the natural resources of the region, also as really something to put forward as a great strength of the region. It's many natural resources, but at the moment, air pollution is a big challenge. And one key driver of air pollution, of course, is the way how energy is being produced. Electricity is being produced very largely by coal. You see here in dark blue the shares of coal. Albania stands out as being almost entirely reliant on hydropower. So a very different system, of course, much more friendly to the air. But you can see how coal plays a massive role for many of the other countries. And at the same time, it's about efficiency in buildings, about efficiency in the transmission networks, in the grids. So a lot here needs to be done. And you can already imagine, since we're speaking about large energy infrastructure, that massive amounts of investment are necessary, but very much also big changes in regulation and in how you deal with the state-owned enterprises, subsidies to fossil fuels, etc. And this is something that we're spending a lot of time on at the moment in our peer learning process. Fourth, and these first three that I presented are the ones that we're focusing on through peer learning and the next review. Something that we see very much as cross-cutting is digitalization, which clearly is an unstoppable trend and a key opportunity for the region. You see here that the region has made quite a bit of progress on digitalization, but still a lot can be done. And it's really something where I think that the Western Balkans should jump on as the key for the future. We've all experienced it now that it's going to be a driver of how we work together in the future. And very importantly, also, we believe that there's a lot of potential in it to transform governments and public service delivery, which are challenges. Migration, of course, is number 5. Is a key topic that comes up in the workshops and in all the areas that we look at. It is a challenge for the region in terms of the brain drain that many well-educated people leave, mainly to the European Union. At the same time, of course, it is a resource of remittances, which are very, very important. They reach households and support households' consumption capabilities. At the same time, in many of the economies, the remittances are so high that they actually create also macroeconomic challenges in terms of a mismatch between the prices and tradables and non-tradables, having a strong impact on wages and leading to challenges in terms of the wage to productivity ratio. So that on the one hand, it's good for households. At the other hand, it's macroeconomically a challenge. And it's a broad challenge for the region in terms of the age of the population going forward. At the same time, diasporas are therefore large. And there's a huge opportunity in mobilizing the diaspora and working with the diaspora in terms of bringing back skills, connections to the region to help the region move forward. Then, as I pointed out before, women have a particularly difficult situation in the labor markets, and a lot needs to be done here to really help women participate much more proactively in economic life and social life overall. You see here that the labor force participation rates for women in some places are much lower than for men and much lower than in many other parts of the world. To come to number 7, land and land management. As you can see, this is very, very complex. I'll try to be very brief on this. The challenge is that there have been many changes of many institutional changes, many changes of how land and the country is managed over the many years. And so you have overlapping histories of property titles, of property registries, of how in legal ways you can acquire land, which in many parts of the region, this leads to a situation where it's very difficult to buy land or to sell land. And especially for the agricultural sector, this is extremely constraining because many farms are forced to stay very small, which on the one hand means many people leave. On the other hand, it means those that would like to invest into agriculture, into land, cannot really do it, which again means there's a lack of collateral if you want to get a loan from the bank. And at the same time, it has a big environmental impact because for many of the more environmentally friendly practices, be it in the way how you use water, how you use fertilizer, you need to be able to invest. And for that, you need a larger scale. You need to be able to have a larger agricultural operation, but you can't really do that when land management is a challenge. It's a very complex issue, but one that we've really found to be a big problem everywhere in the region. And so one where creative solutions really are necessary. I'm coming almost to the end. Local governments are key. They are agents of transformation. They are agents of delivering social services from education through health, through social support. But we see that the capacity of many of these local governments is quite limited and that the right balance hasn't been found yet between central government and local government. We see also a move towards more grant finance as opposed to direct taxation finance, which also unfortunately creates situations where the incentives for local governments are to spend a lot of their budget on salaries as opposed to investing into important projects. And overall, though, this just here, these graphs as just the tip of the iceberg of really having to address this issue of strengthening local governments and putting them in the driver's seat of delivering social services. And then finally, it all comes down to implementation. This slide here really with great thanks to our friends from Sigma, who have been, of course, working on this for many, many years and can say it much better than we can. And we find that legal frameworks are often not very complete, that planning requirements are not always there, that many of the plans are quite over ambitious, that there's a lack of alignment. And we see that in the plans. We also see that in many of the government institutions where responsibilities for certain areas are split between too many different agencies that overlap each other and therefore hinder effective action. And here, streamlining government with really a focus on effective policy implementation and really an effective focus on moving forward is really key and will need to necessarily underpin any success on all of these other priorities that I have outlined. Here, a summary of all of our 9 priorities: education, social cohesion, energy, digital revolution, diaspora, women in the labor market, land rights, getting multi-level governance and local government right, and then a focus on effective implementation. Just very quickly to give you the outlooks for the next steps. And Carolina has already spoken about our peer learning workshops that have been already going on, and we are still very much in the process. We're focusing on education and competencies, social cohesion, and green recovery. And we've been working with many, many of you. And thank you to all of you already for your great participation in this process. And this will be the basis for the report we will present later in the year, hopefully in November, and we're very much looking forward already to seeing you all then again. Let me thank you with this for your attention during this presentation. And in the interest of time, I will move us directly into our panel discussion. And during the panel also, we will have the opportunity to interact with each other. And I already apologize that we're a little bit over time. I would now like to invite all of our panelists and would ask you to please also activate your videos so that we can all see you. We have Susanna Gabel, the chief economist of Sida. We have Oriana Arapi with us, the general director of the policy unit of the Office of the Prime Minister of Albania. Hamdo Tinjak, secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Trade and Economic Relations of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Vedat Sagonjeva, director of the Strategic Planning Office of the Office of the Prime Minister of Kosovo. We have Nina Fiti and Vancho Uzunov, both economic advisors to the Prime Minister of North Macedonia. And we have Jelena Mucinovic, head of the Department for Monitoring Policy Implementation, EU Integration, International Cooperation, and Project Management of the Republic Secretariat for Public Policies in Serbia. So welcome to all of you. I'm very happy to have you with us. And I would like to start, Oriana, if you're with us, I would like to start with you as a first, to begin our panel. And so you are responsible for Albania's strategy for development and integration 2021 to 2030. And you have many years of experience in strategy at the Prime Minister's office. And we've been working together now throughout this process. And what opportunities will this strategy aim for? And how does the strategy shape government action? What's its role in government? And what do you think is the key to success in strategy? Since what we're doing here is diagnostic for strategy, and it would be really great to learn from you about what's key to success in strategy. Oriana, over to you.
Hello to everybody. My name is Oriana Arapi, and I am General Director of the Policy Unit for Development and Good Governance at Prime Minister Office in Albania. I am very pleased to address the panel, and I would like first of all to thank Jan for the presentation and the very interesting highlights on the findings of the report across all the countries. And concerning the points that you mentioned, Jan, well, yes, we have, as Albania, and as Albanian government, we have initiated the process for the preparation of our national strategy for development and European integration, 2021-2030. And we are working on, let's say, on the methodology that we have already prepared. First of all, key success for this strategy, we think that will be the efficient use of the mechanisms and systems that we have already in place, meaning that we are going to use the sectorial approach related to the mechanism of the sectorial approach of the integrated management groups that we have as a mechanism of a dialogue of high level with the EU and donors, as well as with civil society actors and interest groups. This will ensure us coordination, good coordination, but as well and especially consultation with all parties involved. Second, the use of the systems that we have already in place. We have in place the integrated planning system, information system, which is an e-platform that is part of a one single platform, digital platform of the government that is used for the e-performance of the line ministries that ensures planning and budgeting to go hand in hand and to be linked through this platform and this system. The system is functioning since 2020, and with the NSDI, we aim to use it for the first time, let's say in macro scale for the strategy in order to ensure, let's say, efficient management of the process of internal collaboration with all line ministries and independent institutions and other institutions that will contribute to the strategy. In the meantime, the strategy will aim for sure to provide, since it's going to be the main document for orienting the development policy, the policies and the priorities for the country for the next period of time, combining the development agenda of 2030 SDGs and especially the European integration process of the country. We aim that this document will be, let's say, will ensure that the whole administration provides efficient and harmonized management of policies and performance for achieving the goals of the strategy and for ensuring the progress of the country towards membership of EU, towards ensuring smooth negotiations with EU, and in the same time towards developing our country into higher standards in different sectors. In this perspective, we are working, the whole team, of course, with the support of some experts, in order to ensure that the process goes smoothly and provides for a good draft that is consolidated through the work of the administration, as I mentioned, through mechanisms and systems that are important to us, and in the same time ensuring the consultation with all parties on this important document that will orient priority measures, priority projects for the country, and priority policies for the next period of time, and will orient in the same time our medium-term budget programming for the next cycles, and for sure also the EU and EPA 3 priorities of the country towards accessing process of European integration. Thank you, Jan. I hope that I have responded to your questions in the limited timeline, but for sure that for additional questions, I'll be very glad to respond to the colleagues. Thank you very much.
Jan, you are on mute. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Oriana. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your answer and for being with us. And indeed, I think we'll have the opportunity for exchanges. And it's we're very happy to have Albania's experience. In the interest of time, I would like to move on quickly to Vedat Sagonjeva from Kosovo. And Vedat, like Oriana, you're responsible for development strategy. From your perspective, what do you find the most challenging aspect of strategy making for Kosovo? And what makes diagnostics like the report that we are launching today useful to you in that strategy making process?
Thank you, Jan, for the question and for the presentation. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm delighted to be part of this panel and also this big number of people that are participating. This shows the relevance and importance of event for members. We have been working together over the past year and coordinated with colleagues from OECD. And with this, I would like to thank you, but also to thank my team in the strategic planning office and colleagues from line ministries that have been very active in providing information and also discussion, providing important feedback for this analysis to be that I would say assess for the
Vedat, I'm afraid your connection is a bit
space in terms of strategy development.
Vedat, maybe if you try to turn off your video, maybe then we hear you better.
Is it better now? Is it better now?
Yeah, I think it sounds better. Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so Kosovo's administration, there are many challenges that we face in terms of development. And as stressed in the objective of this exercise, policymakers need to reconcile economic, social, and environmental objectives to ensure that the targets that the strategies do target most important development challenges. And I would like to link this question also with the topic of strategy implementation. In our experiences here, we have quite a low rate of strategy implementation. And this comes because of poor strategy development, a huge number of strategies, fragmented approach, not a very sectorial approach. Beside this, the maybe most important aspects that in Kosovo are related to strategy development, but I believe also elsewhere. Human capacities to perform analytical work is policy making. As we are becoming smarter and smarter in terms of data, data also becomes key to strategy development, and it is in fact. Kosovo has set some basis for evidence-based policy development, but we need to work still on reliable indicators that will serve as basis for analytical work for strategy making. When developing strategies, another challenge is that strategic documents in particular sectors do not take into account the specific needs of target groups, regional disparities, and actions needed in different levels of the government, national and municipal, in order to avoid the attempts to design a new strategic document for fragmented problems or separate target groups. And indeed, as you have highlighted in the diagnostics, in the multi-dimensional country review, a diagnostic like this will be crucial for us. And as we are in a process, like in Albania, of developing the new development strategy 2030, this will be important for us to and complement all the analysis that we have undertaking in parallel. Especially to set the baseline for the development challenges of the country. Compared to the previous development strategy that we have, it's expiring now. We will apply a more comprehensive approach in terms of tackling development challenges. The 4 MCDR will help also to provide that holistic approach that do not simply promote growth, but ensures that Kosovo addresses also global development goals. So putting forth also some more efforts to link with the sustainable development goals. There is another momentum in Kosovo, also in the region. We are working with the Regional Cooperation Council on a SE 2030 strategy. So having this analysis and other efforts that countries are doing at a national level, having the results of the Western Balkans multidimensional review will help also to set and also complement what we have defined also in the together with RCC in the SE 2030 strategy. So to conclude, the diagnostic report will be useful in terms of that can provide an overarching view, since we will have key opportunities and constraints that are highlighted in this process as a result of a broad participation of different stakeholders in process. Just not to forget, apart from colleagues from line institutions in Kosovo and also in the Western Balkans, there was quite a huge involvement also of civil society and private sector development partners. So this is crucial to have this overarching overview about the constraints and opportunities. As its title explains, in a way, it gives a broader perspective that can help us identify that what will work and what not in terms of the experiences with the current strategy, and also how we are going to build and develop the targets for key development challenges for Kosovo. Once again, thank you very much, and I'm sorry if there has been any connection problem from this side, and looking forward to the discussions and potential questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vedat. Thank you very much for your contribution. Actually, also thank you for mentioning the Southeastern Europe strategy, and we have also Umut Ergeza from the RCC Secretariat with us. And also our colleagues with the OECD Competitiveness Outlook for the region, of course, play an important role. So we are very happy to see that process moving forward. And thank you for your insights into this process in Kosovo. I would now like to turn to Susanna Gabel. Susanna, you're the chief economist of Sida, and you have a lot of experience with diagnostics in development. What makes a development strategy a useful document or a useful process for you? And what do you think does a diagnostic like the one we're launching today need to deliver to be useful?
Well, thank you so much, Jan, for the opportunity to provide some reflections on this. Well, first of all, as everyone else, I'd like to take the opportunity to congratulate you and your team for a very successful analysis of the Western Balkans, but also a very successful process, the whole process of bringing forward this diagnostics. So it has certainly inspired us at Sida, but I know also many other IFIs and bilateral donors have been inspired by your work. The congratulation of course, also extends to the governments of the countries involved, who has managed to mobilize support and stakeholders to be involved in this process, which is absolutely essential. And that's kind of the essence of what I wanted to talk about on this panel. And as you will see, I find it difficult to separate your two questions, since the strategy and the diagnostics, for me, is extremely tightly interlinked. So strategy, it isn't turned into policies in a vacuum. It happens through a range of decisions taken of and for people involved along the way. So for a strategy to be successful, it just has to be recognized and adopted by the various stakeholders that are going to be involved in the actual reform and policy change, as well as those that are going to be affected by it. But why is this broad ownership and involvement important already at the diagnostic level? So I wanted to bring up three things for why I think that's very important. The first one is that data can only tell you about what has been. So for example, in the Western Balkans study, one of the main conclusions is that education is a main constraint. But if you would have looked at just the data, you could as well have concluded that, well, the education level in Western Balkans is actually pretty high for its income level. But if you involve a stakeholder analysis, it's possible to have a more forward-looking approach on constraints. And then suddenly, of course, you take the digitalization of the world that is going on right now and other major changes, and suddenly education becomes absolutely essential to ensure that these countries are not stuck in the middle income trap going forward. So with stakeholder involvement, you can put the limelight a bit more on opportunities and not only challenges when you identify the constraints to development. The second point I wanted to make, why it's important to have stakeholder involvement in the diagnostics, is that the context then in which we operate, in which the strategy is supposed to operate, changes extremely quickly, and we need a common language to be able to act very agile when that happens. And I mean, this is true for development in general, but obviously with COVID just happening, that point becomes extremely obvious. And all actors then, all stakeholders have different ideas about what the ultimate goal is with development. And you have different ideas about the pathways of achieving these goals. But with a strategy that is based on a participatory diagnostics, we at least have a common basis, a common language that enables us to understand the various and often very, very difficult trade-offs that had to be made along the way. And this is, of course, essential in order to take efficient, quick decisions for growth, poverty reduction, climate, etc., even if you're in the midst of a crisis. The third point is that the set of challenges that emerging and developing countries face are extremely complex and multifaceted, and there is always an element of subjectivity. And policymakers, they are required to reconcile economic, social, environmental objectives, and to ensure that their country's development path is sustainable and that it's lived and that all citizens' lives improve along the way. So decisions will be made, and the diagnostic is simply a way to ensure that these decisions that are going to be made are as informed as possible. In some areas, we will have a lot of evidence and we can be very objective and very confident. And in others, we have close to no evidence. So to be helpful to resource-constrained policymakers in their decisions, we need to factor in complementarities and trade-offs across sectors, even when evidence is very scarce. And this process is complex, even if you have one objective, say economic growth or something. And of course, even more so when the development objective is multidimensional. But this is reality. And what I like so much about OECD's multidimensional country reviews is that you don't shy away from this reality. And hence you are more helpful in that way to policymakers that lives in it. But it becomes very complicated, and you can be less objective then and have quantitative methods in the type of trade-offs you need to do. And there's a larger element then for subjectivity, for value discussions, for more systemic thinking. And you need to take into account visibility aspects and so on. And for this, you need to have the relevant stakeholders at the table already at the diagnostic level. So just ending by saying it's really impressive to see how this multi-dimensional country review team at OECD take all this into account, and you also push the frontier for everyone else, both in terms of the analytical methods, but also then in these process methods and stakeholder methods. And it's very inspiring for SIDA and a range of other organizations. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Susanna. Thank you. That is very much appreciated. And I think you've highlighted very, very important elements, that at the end of the day, a strategy is a document, but for implementation, you need all those that are necessary for implementation to be fully on board, which needs stakeholder engagement, but it also needs a common language, as you said. And so the strategy needs to help to get everybody around common objectives. And then I thought the other very evident but important point you made is decisions will be made anyway when they have to be made. And so it is very, having good diagnostics up front is useful for the moment when decisions have to be made. And that's what we're hoping to support. So thanks again, Susanna. I would now like to move over to Hamdu Tinjak from Bosnia and Herzegovina. Hamdu, from your perspective on trade and economic development, what do you think a strategy needs to provide to be useful in the context of Bosnia and Herzegovina? And what did you find most useful in this multidimensional review?
Thank you, Jan, very much. And thanks to the OECD and SIDA for such a great multidimensional review of the situation in the economies in the region. It's very useful. And from my point of view, being in the process of European integration, we already started a long time ago alignment with the EU acquis. That means bringing new strategies that are following European Union's views of development, and in that sense, we already powered actually bring the lot of strategies that are following such views. But anyhow, what I want to stress for this panel is that I fully agree with the basic strategic goals and priorities that you have foreseen in this document. And for Bosnia and Herzegovina, I can agree that there should follow further infrastructure development, which in case of Bosnia and Herzegovina Unfortunately, we were not capable to do much more, and this is, in my point of view, priority number one when it comes to the further development of, in any case, in Bosnia and Herzegovina. For example, Corridor 5C, that is just about 300 kilometers. We are still on some 50 kilometers built, which is really not acceptable for anybody. Then internal market, fragmenting internal market is one very, very sensitive issue, fragmented within Bosnia and Herzegovina, but there are some signs of improving situation when it comes to the regional cooperation in a form of common regional market, which is one regional initiative as a test and pre-step to the integration into a single European market, which is very favored by the European Commission, supported in any way. Then we can speak about the rule of law, fight against corruption. Maybe this can sound a little bit out of the economical focus or economical issues, but this is very, very important issue. Maybe you can see how much is important in the case of Bosnia and Herzegovina. When we got these 14 priorities, actually reform priorities, processes that we have to fulfill before getting the status of candidate country member to European Union integrations. All of them are, for example, in the fields of democracy. In the field of democracy, 5 of them. In the field of rule of law, 2 of them, 3 of them. In the field of human rights, also 4, 5, 6 of them. So 14 priorities are about this, and no economy, no trade, no such a similar issue. So that shows us how much these issues are important for the development of one country. Of course, I have if I have to add something to this, I would actually only underline, not add. You mentioned also this in this document, digital transformation of the Bosnia and Herzegovina is more than the priority. If you compare within the region, not mentioning European Union, we have to do so much in this field. What is the good starting point for Bosnia and Herzegovina? It's a situation that we have lowest level of public debt among the countries comparable economies, which is very good starting points. Could be used in a good way to recover such a situation caused by pandemic, and of course the good situation within the financial sector, health and stability have improved considerably in Bosnia and Herzegovina. You have stated that in this document. So there are good starting points also. We should use this document as really brilliant, excellent one, and I'm really you are tackling the most important things for Bosnia and Herzegovina. And I again want to stress the importance of the European integrations. Somebody in Bosnia and Herzegovina will add also NATO integrations. You didn't mention this kind of integration in this document. I know that there is no full consensus about NATO integration in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but from my personal point of view, this has shown us in the region, in the case of Croatia, Montenegro, and Albania, that this is such an important step for the economy and for the stability, for the investments, for everything else. But as I said, there is we need time to reach consensus within Bosnia and Herzegovina about this issue. So this will be my short presentation of my views in this panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hamdo. That is much appreciated, and also for really giving us your perspective of the key issues in Bosnia and Herzegovina and how they link up with the regional perspective. Thank you very much. I see already we're running short of time. I'll move directly to Nina Fiti from North Macedonia. Nina, you advised the Prime Minister on strategy. And what do you think is the role of strategy in shaping government action versus day-to-day pressures of events? And what do you think are really the most challenging aspects of strategy making for you in North Macedonia? And if you could try to stay quite brief, I apologize, but we'll have to stay on time. Thank you. Nina, over to you.
Thank you, Jan. Sure, I will be really brief. Just thank you for the presentation of the document today. I believe that this document will be really useful for our country, North Macedonia, but I really support the regional approach of the document. So thanks for the opportunity to being part of this event today. Also, just to thank to Ivana and Elena, which are actually coordinating this process from our side. Just to mention that North Macedonia and our government already have developed a lot of strategies which are covering different areas of economic activities in the national economy, as agriculture, industry, energy, tourism, transport, as main economic sectors, then strategies in public finance area, strategies for good governance, security. And it is important to underline that all strategic documents in the sector, in these sectors, and what I actually mentioned, are mainly in alignment with the main strategic document, the Economic Reform Program, as a broader strategic document of the government, as well as the government strategic priorities. Going forward, the diagnostics that are provided by the IFIs, for example, and the donors and the partnership strategies that we actually have with them, play a really important role when designing these strategic documents, mainly in defining the priorities and the goals. So it's really difficult question shaping the government actions. First, the government actions, we really think that they have to be clearly linked to defined strategic priorities and goals. This is really important. And then second, having in mind, as everybody here mentioned previously, that the preparation of the separate strategies was based on a broad institutional, analytical, and participatory process through involving all the relevant stakeholders and the separate, harmonized with the, also this is harmonized with the latest regulation of the EU. It is of high importance to preserve good coordination between all involved partners. Mainly respecting the ownership of the processes. In practice, ensuring vertical alignment, establishing cross-sectoral approach, stakeholders consultation, involvement of key actors in addressing all the relevant cross-sectoral and cross-cutting issues becomes challenging, not always easygoing process. So definitely it requires huge commitment by all relevant actors when shaping the government actions in order to result inclusive, transparent, and timely processes. When developing strategy, surely we face a number of challenges, as you mentioned, in order to have, for example, myself and Vancho, we are working on developing the human capital strategy with the World Bank. So it's really a process that needs, as above mentioned, to be coordinated with all relevant stakeholders, donors, chambers, universities, local authorities, civil society, and our external partners. In that sense, obtaining broad ownership and potentially broadly accepted strategy becomes one of the key challenges. Because this is the key actually of the successful strategy. This is what we feel during this process. Going forward, now I will say a few words about the implementation process, the implementation of of strategy, which in our opinion is really important phase to have a successful strategy. The institutional capacity in our countries need to be really strengthened. To improve the institutional capacity of the country is really important for us. Ensuring proper and efficient implementation means having the mechanisms for monitoring and evaluation, creation of methodology for improved cooperation, reporting, monitoring of these processes, creating frameworks. These are some of the challenges that we see during the process of now I'm speaking about this human capital strategy, but anyhow, when building a strategy. And just to mention that now North Macedonia in the process of preparation of the national development strategy under the leadership of the Deputy Prime Minister for Economic Affairs. And this process aims to bring together all the actors and stakeholders, but also this process will utilize the current diagnostics and the strategies that we have until now. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you so much. And you've also very much emphasized this importance of stakeholder engagement and bringing everybody on board. And thank you for giving us an outline of the various strategies that are going on. I'm looking at the time, Jelena, from Serbia. I think this is the perfect moment also to bring you on, because you're responsible for monitoring and implementation. And this is, of course, often the key challenge. And Nina has just mentioned the importance of monitoring and information and implementation. What, in the context of Serbia, what are the keys to successful implementation? What are the main opportunities, and what is your experience?
Hello from my side as well. I want to say hello to all the participants. I hope that you are well, all, and that we are going to be well in the future as well. So thank you very much. Thank you for your country review, which is very, very useful for us. And we gave a lot of our time for the development of this country, multidimensional country review. So thank you for that. We will use it in the future as well. So I will be brief, because I know that it's a destiny of the last panelist. So you will have not 5, you will have 2.5 minutes maybe, but I was thinking how to shorten my presentation. So I will tell you just briefly about some specific items. So, my name is Jelena Mujcinovic, and I come from Republic of Serbia, and I work for the Public Policy Secretariat of the Republic of Serbia, which is the key institution in the government for the policy coordination. And when we are talking about the strategies in the development and monitoring and implementation of the strategies, I can say that the Public Policy Secretariat responsibility for the monitoring and implementation of policies, public policy documents, as is stated in the law on planning system, has been clearly regulated by the law on ministry as well as by the law on planning system of the Republic of Serbia, which was adopted in March 2018. And I must say that the number of strategies at the national level is still high. It was 2 years ago, it was around 150, 160 strategies. But it is worth to emphasize that it has been significantly reduced as of January 2021, due to the fact, it's a quite nice fact, but it's a fact that the most of strategies had expired at the end of 2020. So at some side, you can see that it's a lack, because the full implementation we can now enforce, because now we are at the process of developing of new strategies, as well as sector strategies, as well as other strategies, programs and action plans, which are the public policy documents. And that we can, the likeness is that we can develop those strategies regarding and specifically by the law which prescribes by the law and planning system. So the main point of the law and planning system that we have a hierarchy of the documents, that we have the roof strategy and other strategies that are linked in the same area, planning area. And above that, we should develop a national planning, the development plan for the whole Republic of Serbia, as well as development plans for the local region. So I must also underline here that the Public Policy Secretariat, I must emphasize that it's not in charge to carry out impact assessment of the strategy to the overall society and target groups when we are talking about the impact. So it has to be done by the proponents of the public policy document, and it is expected to be completed to the proper ex post impact assessment, which is prescribed as well by the law on the planning system. And finally, the overall impact of the strategy is to be done by the government, which only has the right to conclude whether or not the policy had been implemented and whether it is necessary to revise it or to decline and to develop a proper policy. So, I mean, I can tell you more about the law and the bylaw. I mean, we are lucky that we have a law and that we are going to make a proper hierarchy of the documents. So when we have a proper hierarchy of the documents, we will have optimized areas which we are going to further implement and to further develop regarding when we are talking about the law and planning system. So, I just wanted to say one more thing about the main opportunities. I mean, as well, I must say that the law and planning system is the main opportunity. So in the future, all the proponents will oblige the mandatory elements from the law, which I must say at the moment is very well done. So hopefully in the future we will have even less strategies, but much more concrete, and that will give us better results in the future. So that's all from me. So, okay, thank you very much.
Hvala, Jelena. Thank you very much, especially for setting out this your new law on planning as that you see as a key opportunity. I think that will be very interesting also for others to see. I would like to open the discussion, but I also know that some of our key speakers are quite pressed for time. And I know that we have representatives from the European Union and also the RCC and the Ambassador of Italy who would like to come in. But I also know that we have His Excellency Ambassador Thomas Schnöll from Austria, who has agreed to do the closing, but I know that he needs to be somewhere else at 4:30 sharp. So, Your Excellency Thomas Schnöll, if you're here, I would just invite you to come on right now, just to make sure we can still have you with us before you have to leave.
Yeah, thank you very much. And this is very kind of you, because I really have to leave at 4:30. So first of all, I would like to thank you for an excellent presentation of the review, but everybody else, especially the panelists who participated in this event. And, you know, I intervene not only in my capacity as the chair of the ERC, but I accepted the invitation really with great pleasure, because it's not only a region which is important for Austria as a neighboring country, a foreign policy priority, but also for myself. A long time of my diplomatic career, I was working on and with the countries of the region in Brussels, in Vienna, but also as ambassador to Albania, which was a very exciting moment. And during all that period, I have to say, and this brings me also to the European perspective, which has been mentioned already several times, you can see also the different path of the countries of the region and how fast they move towards the European Union, towards European structures. Some, and Ambassador Lenoir will highlight that afterwards, I think, some are in the middle of a negotiation process, like Serbia and Montenegro. Others just have started this process. Others still have some institutional problems. So you see that the situation differs from one country to another, but the European perspective is a unifying element, I would say, not only between political parties and the political actors, but also among the population. And I think this is important because this way the perspective, which has to be clear and tangible, by the way, becomes an engine of reforms for the region. Having said that, this country-by-country approach, I think it's also extremely important that we see the Western Balkans as a region with a regional approach. Therefore, I think that the OECD has an extremely important role to play, for example, when it comes to the transformation of the economy, to overcoming social and territorial inequality, revenue generation, all the elements which you highlighted perfectly well, Jan, in the presentation of the multidimensional review, and other speakers, by the way, on the panel. So there is an important role. That's why the review is also extremely important, and the second stage of the review, by the way, and also the competitivity report of the organization, which fits into this important, without going into details, but which fits into this important Berlin process, which also follows the idea of a cross-border cooperation. And this way, it also helps to foster good neighborly relations, of course. So I want to congratulate again the OECD team for producing this important and, as we saw, very timely report, and all the government institutions, NGOs, academia, private sector representatives, and other stakeholders for their involvement and their support, also to the Swedish government for the support of this project. And I wish you now a good continuation. I thought it might be the concluding remarks, but this was not the case. And I wish you all the best for the end of the meeting. Thank you, Jan.
Ambassador Schnell, thank you so much for your remarks and for being with us, and for your emphasis on the regional dimension and the regional importance. I'm trying my best to manage. I know that our colleague Umut Ergezer from the Regional Cooperation Secretariat has also to leave us in 3 minutes, and wanted to just say quickly something on the strategy. Umut, please.
Thank you, Jan, and thank you really giving the floor to us. Just to present very shortly the SC 2030 strategy, which we are expecting to be adopted by all 13 SC economies next week during their summit in Antalya. So the SC 2030 basically is a next decade strategy for the region called Southeast Europe, which is comprising of 13 economies, not only the Western Balkans, but all other economies in the Southeast Europe, which are 5 EU member states, as well as Moldova and Turkey. And the SC 2030 will be based on UN Agenda 2030 and Sustainable Development Goals. And during the preparation, which RCC Secretariat was mandated by the leaders of Southeast Europe in 2019, we respected a couple of methodological principles that are stemming from the relevant UN methodology. These are, which we applied a bottom-up approach rather than top-down. And then we respected transparency, accountability in order to establish a fully regionally owned strategy, as well as to respect that the strategic actions are relevant to the priorities of 13 economies. In this regard, we went through all the national voluntary reviews based on the national prioritization of 13 economies, how that they will be implementing sustainable development goals. And we would like to have that strategy a living document. So it will go through every 2 years an update an updating process. We are looking for a high-level engagement of parliaments. And we would like to also kickstart a region-to-region dialogue between Southeast Europe and neighboring regions like Black Sea and Mediterranean regions, particularly in the implementation of sustainable development goals. For the moment, the draft, still I'm calling it as draft, it includes 3 pillars called prosperity, people, peace, and partnership of the region, and 13 different priorities and 78 actions. We would like to share with the text of the strategy with all of you next week through our website and all other platforms. And I wish you all the best success of this event and your endeavor on the multi-dimensional review, which we are benefiting a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Umut, and good luck with your strategy process. We're all looking forward to seeing it next week. I would now like to invite Ingve Engström from the EU delegation to Serbia.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being able to say a few words. I was asked just before the conference, and very nice to see a number of familiar faces on the screen. This is a very interesting debate today, and the study is very good to use existing funds and to move forward on the reforms requires certainly good strategies, maybe not too detailed, but good strategies, and then the implementation, which has been mentioned by previous speakers as well. I would just like to add an element, and maybe based on my experience from working in the region for quite some time, but probably also applicable to other countries around the world, the EU countries as well. It's the need for to look a bit more on the intervention logic. So we see, as was mentioned, also very often many strategies, good attempts to improve the implementation, like was mentioned for Serbia with the law and planning, also in Albania, where I work to have a global framework on the implementation and the monitoring framework. This is very, very important, but the strategies and the results from implementation of the strategies cannot be better than the analytics behind it. So we need the type of diagnostic that you've done, and which is very useful, but to maybe dive into a bit more on the causes beyond the problems or the issues at stake, so that the medicine that is prescribed is the correct one, and then can be implemented. And I can give one example, let's say access to finance, which is very often an issue for SMEs. That could be the problem, but there could also be other problems because liquidity is often very good in the banks in the region. And the question is then, why does not the companies use the funds that are available? So obviously there is something else behind. It might be governance issues. It might be an uninterest to grow further. So I think in all types of strategies, without knowing the problem in a bit more detailed way, it's very difficult to explain and justify the measure and the reforms. So that would be my contribution today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ingve Engström. And I appreciate very much your point on liquidity in the banking system, because I made the very same comment on the request for comments on a strategy in the region. So it's an interesting point. I would like to move us directly to His Excellency Ambassador Bernardini of Italy to the OECD.
Thank you, Jan. I think that we are all under pressure, and probably your schedule has been disrupted by the many commitments that we all have. So thank you very much for giving me the floor. I apologize with the my colleague from the European Union, Didier Lenoir, I'm sure is waiting also to take the floor. But let me tell you that I'm very much happy to have participated today in this presentation. It's been very informative, and all the intervention of the colleagues from the region have been very good and very interesting. I think that, first of all, let me also thank the Swedish government for supporting this initiative, as well as to underline the strong support of the European Union through the Sigma program in the region. And even recently, I think that the European Union has confirmed again to continue to support the activities in the region. It's very good news. Of course, the region is very important for Italy, is important for the European Union, but it's very important for the OECD. I think that we are paying more and more attention to what OECD can do in the region. The European perspective is an important one, and I think that at a certain point in time, when you have an European perspective, the road will cross with the OECD. And we look at the OECD as an organization that will be able to reinforce this perspective, will play a very important role to reform the region, to bring the region closer and closer to Europe. So I think that from that point of view, a strong encouragement to this work, and very good the work that the Development Centre has been doing in this respect. We look at also the discussion within the External Relations Committee on regional programs. These processes are very much reinforcing one each other, but we look at the future as with the possibility to talk more and more about the Balkans, to see more and more countries in the region being closer and closer to OECD and to Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Bernardini. And indeed, in the interest of time, I think I'll have to move us on to our closing speakers. I apologize that there isn't really enough time for questions, but I think we've already had a very good exchange with a lot of emphasis on the need to be participatory, to bring all the stakeholders on board, on the need to have strong diagnostics to really drive strategies that really identify and attacks the most critical issues. So to put the money where you get the biggest return for that investment. And also we very much heard the importance of the European perspective, and I think the support of really the whole OECD family to look at the region and support the region in that way. So with that, I would like to ask His Excellency Ambassador Didier Lenoir from the European Union to begin with his closing, please.
Merci beaucoup. I mean, I'll repeat a lot of points that have already been made. I mean, gratitude for the opportunity to have this discussion, gratitude for the quality of the discussion, gratitude to Sweden for financing this work, praise to the work done by the Development Centre in this excellent report. So a lot of that has already been said, but I want to be on record for having said it as well. We are very pleased with that report. I mean, we think that we're very pleased with the fact that our delegation on the spot have been involved in the process, consulted. Very much appreciate the way the sort of EU accession process and EU perspective is actually driving the public policies of the region. As you know, Balkan is obviously a paramount priority for the EU, a region where we put a lot of political, institutional, financial support at all levels, and it dates back a number of years. So that's an area that is pretty important for us, and that is the reason why we do appreciate the work that the OECD is going for quite some time as well in the Western Balkans. I would like to mention the OECD Sigma program, for instance, that delivers through analysis, technical assistance in areas such as the regulatory framework or the technical approximation to EU standards, etc., anti-corruption, institutional administrative reform, you name it. So pleased to see that Development Center is also engaged in working on other topics, the post-pandemic recovery, the social cohesion, climate change, important element of EU policies, the social aspects. So it gives another perspective that very well complements the governance work and the more economic work that is being done elsewhere. I was mentioning that we were very pleased to see that the EU accession process is properly reflected. It's obviously a key factor of the Balkans development and political stabilization process. It's a central driver of many of the regional opportunities, and it's a long-standing process. So we very much welcome the fact that it has been properly factored in the report. I mean, it's mentioned in the report. I think it's made clear that the further integration into the EU is the overarching priority for all the economies and for society as a whole in this region. So it's obviously from time to time a complex process, tedious process, complex procedures of benchmarking in particular, and that's where the OECD is bringing a lot of added value. So I think we could be pretty satisfied with the work that has already been done. Major steps have been made. Some fundamental progress have been made. Visa liberalization regime are currently being negotiated, agreed, and implemented. Elections are being organized, and they are generally regarded as free and fair. Robust economic growth was taking place before the pandemic, and a number of political difficulties have been solved. So this is all to the credit of the international community. I mentioned obviously a lot the EU and the EU perspective, but I wanted to acknowledge also the very important support and very efficient support that we are getting from the OECD as a whole. So with that words again, all our thanks, and if I could express a wish to conclude, it's really the added value of the OECD is to bring together this different perspective, a more social perspective from some directorate, a more economic perspective from other directorate, the government's perspective. So for us, it's very important that all these perspectives are bring together and reinforce each other. So that's the logic in which we will be continuing to work together with the OECD to continue this progress, to continue this journey towards a successful implementation of, as far as we are concerned, this EU perspective. Thank you very much.
Ambassador Lenoir, thank you so much. Merci beaucoup. And also thank you for highlighting this importance of bringing together these many different perspectives that sometimes risk to live in silos, but that you need to play in an orchestra together as opposed to just being soloists. And it's very much what we try to do with the multidimensional reviews. And that's also what many other colleagues across the House try to do. So thank you for highlighting that. With that, I would like to invite Ambassador Turoci of Hungary and the chair of the Group of Friends of Southeast Europe to close the event for us.
Thank you, Jan. It is my great privilege to deliver the closing remarks. In fact, the closing remarks today in my capacity as the chair of the Friends of Southeast Europe Group of OECD ambassadors, but also as the Hungarian ambassador to OECD. I would start by thanking the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, Karolina Wennerholm, and also the OECD Development Centre for making today's event happen. And also thank to the distinguished panelists for their insightful contributions today. After such a rich contribution and discussion, and also other concluding remarks, it is difficult to add much original at this stage, but I would do my best and limit myself to 4 main messages, and very briefly. First, I congratulate to the Secretariat and all parties involved for this excellent multidimensional review report, which identifies the most important strategic priorities for the Western Balkans region in devising their development strategies I am reassured that this report is an important sign of the growing engagement of OECD with the region, together with other ongoing work streams, such as the OECD Competitiveness Outlook Report and its Southeast Europe Regional Programme. Second, it was striking to me how much the strategic priorities identified by this review are often very similar to the priorities of OECD countries themselves. Maybe not in all details and maybe with different emphases, but yet the main directions are often very similar. So if there is one thing I learned in the first 2 years as an ambassador to OECD, it is that due to globalization, at the end of the day, every region is facing somewhat same or very similar challenges or different parts of the same challenges. Consequently, there is a significant scope for learning from each other, both directions. In this regard, the work of the Development Centre on multidimensional country reviews is highly valuable, as they facilitate mutual learning, help sharing best practice, and provide concrete policy advice. I'm hopeful and convinced that this review will indeed support the framing of development strategies for the Western Balkans economies for the next decade in a way that the people and governments of the Western Balkans themselves find helpful. Third, I firmly believe that the social and economic recovery of the Western Balkans and the European integration and the increased recognition of the region will go hand in hand. In my view, in order for the Southeast European region to take full advantage of OECD cooperation, this region needs the widest possible support from member states, which is why I was delighted to listen to today's insightful panel discussion with the esteemed representatives of Western Balkan economies and see their dedication to the growth, sustainability, and prosperity of their respective economies. And finally, more generally, the COVID crisis has eroded, even reversed, the progress made to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, which threatens to be one of the foremost challenges of the 21st century. In this context, the work of the OECD on development, and particularly on data collection, evidence-based analysis, and policy recommendations, including that of the Development Centre, are more important than ever for all regions of our globe, including the Western Balkans, to which Hungary and the Friends of Southeast Europe group is particularly attached. Jan, I think I had better stop here by once again congratulating you and all of your team and all others involved for this multidimensional review and also for conducting today's event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Turoc, for your closing remarks. Thank you to all of you for having been with us for the very, very good discussion. We're very much looking forward to the next steps in the process together. Hope to see you all here again in November with the next report. Also, my personal thanks to Sida, to your support, Carolina, Susanna, and Agnes and Madeleine and everybody else. And finally, to the team, the multidimensional review team. My name has come up a bit, but really thank you to all of you, especially Gorazd, Juan, Andrea, Kerstin, Diana, and all the others that have helped, Maria, who is also here, that have helped with the report. So thank you so much. Well, see you again very soon in the space. Please go to the website, look at the report, post it on Twitter and social media, and take it out to the world. And good luck to all of our panelists with your strategies. And I very much hope that we can continue this conversation and continue working on your development strategies together. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.